Thank you for joining us to learn about creating a data-driven culture. In this video, you will learn why it is important to be data-driven and the benefits from it.
Questions in the window. So what is a data-driven culture? So we look at it in three different ways. First off, you want to make smarter business decisions, you want to use your data more effectively, and you want to instill trust and commitment across your enterprise. So in Infragistics, like, we could be a case study for creating a data-driven culture. We've gone through this process maybe over the last 4 years, I guess. I don't know. I've been with Infragistics for 17 years or 18 years now. And, in the beginning, back in, 2003, 2007, 2009, we had data, but, we always looked at data in one way. And the world didn't really open up to this BI analytics culture that's been really promoted over the last 5 to maybe 8 or 9 years. So we've evolved in how we use data to make every decision. And when we're in a meeting, if there's no data, we don't really care about how you feel about this issue. Bring the data. There's no more gut feeling, no more assumptions, no more like, oh, that guy, he always knows the right answer. Yeah, that doesn't happen. Data can really tell you where things are going, not only what happened, but where things are going, and it really does help make those smarter business decisions. Where you get the benefit is in very concrete things, like the second bullet here, the customer journey. Think about tracking every aspect of your customer journey over the last 20 years, and then you would say, oh man, you know what, we're not getting as many conversions, so let's have the UX team redesign the website. And then you redesign the website, and guess what happens? Your conversions get worse. Well, maybe the website had nothing to do with the problem. And this is really what happens, is people made decisions without data, and they still do it today. You're going to see some statistics in today's presentation where this is not commonplace in the enterprise. And then finally, the biggest thing is having this trust. So instilling trust and commitment across the organization, so then everyone is using shared metrics, and they start to really rely on data as what's driving the success of your department, your company, your organization. We all have metrics, right? So you're using Jira, and your developers are writing software, and it's very easy to tell who writes all the bugs. It's very easy to tell who writes the most code. It's very easy to tell who fixes the most bugs, who responds to the most customer requests. But are you using that in the right way? Is the guy that has the most bugs written in your repository and in your reports, is that because he's writing the most code? Is that because he's answering the most questions? Or is it because he doesn't really know the technology or the platform that he's writing code for? So by using data and the right metrics, you can actually get to these types of results. But everyone has to be on the same metrics, and we're going to talk about those metrics today, around metrics that matter, and give some examples of that. So the role of data and analytics is changing from being a standalone discipline to becoming a catalyst for digital strategy. So this is what I was talking about with Infragistics, is when we looked at data in the past, it was like, hey, we have all this data, we always make data-driven decisions. Well, we did and we didn't. So in the beginning, what usually happens is there is a lot of data, and then kind of the person in charge is saying, oh, these are the metrics, or this is what we need to improve on. But they don't really know, because maybe they don't have all the data, or they're not looking at the data in the right way. The second example around experimental decision making, if you're not familiar with the concept of growth hacking is, or the foundation of growth hacking is experimental decision making. So we do this at Infragistics. There's no silver bullet answer to every problem. So what do you have to do? You have to experiment. You have to say, okay, in the year 2000, we were doing A/B testing on websites. Like, that was the biggest thing in the world. Like, let's see which website page they click the button on more. Okay, well, we pretty much know through UX that they're always going to click the button in the upper right-hand side, and if the color sticks out. Like, you don't really need to test that anymore. But what you do need to test is the message correct? Are they scrolling? Once they read the page, or actually are they on the page for more than like 3 seconds before they bounce? So looking at bounce rates and, oh, let's change messaging to see if they stay a little longer. Let's see what the button says that leads to a conversion versus a download. Do we say start a trial or call sales or contact us? So these are all of these growth hacking experiments that you can do to actually drive better decisions. The third area is culture. Culture, no matter what, like culture goes through every change in an organization. The hardest thing to do is change culture. And the problem with small companies, and small companies being like, maybe 300 employees or less, or maybe 400, is that the people at the top have probably been there for a while. So they're driving the culture. And the way they've always done things is how everyone does things. But when they start to change and adapt, so for example, let's say you're in a small business and you have 100 or 200 employees, and your CEO has always done things a certain way, but then he starts talking about this data-driven culture. So you're like, might be a little like suspicious, like, wait a minute, why is he changing the way we're making decisions? Why aren't we doing things the way we did last week or last year? This is the culture change is the hardest thing. Going from a waterfall to agile to DevOps, a huge culture change for a product team. Marketing teams, did things historically a certain way. Now you're using tools like Marketo and Adobe, and you're figuring out answers and can do things in different ways. And all of a sudden, it's like, wait a minute, I'm not sure if this is the right way to do it because we never did it this way. So the resistance to change is always what blocks these things from being successful in an organization. And that's one of the bigger things that you have to overcome. And then the fourth area is just tooling. We're going to show you Reveal today. Of course, there's a lot of tools on the market. And of course, we know Reveal is the best tool to really facilitate data storytelling, collaboration, and sharing of data across the organization, either as an app or as an embedded solution in your existing applications where you can push this out in your applications to customers. So this data-driven culture isn't as easy as you might think, because there's a lot of moving parts to making sure that you can be successful. So a great statistic from Gartner is 65% of data science projects are not operationalized, even though it's easier than ever to access data and create that analysis. So this is no different than statistics like, 30% of IT projects are never delivered. There's always this number in the beginning of a shift in an organization, which shows that, hey, we're not being successful. So what that really means is we have to try harder to be successful. So when we think about things like customer acquisition, retention, okay, so ultimately your metric is revenue. It's sales, no matter what. It doesn't matter if you're writing a feature in a product, or you're a salesperson selling the product, or you're the CEO coming up with the strategy with your management team. Sales and revenue are the end goal, but how do we get there? So looking at customer acquisition and retention through analytics and insights, but acting on those insights is critical. Today, we see all kinds of data, and this is a really mind-boggling number. 2.5 quintillion bytes of data is created each day. So over the last 2 years alone, 90% of the world's data was generated. So there was a quote from oh gosh, I can't remember his name, the CEO and co-founder of Netscape, Jim Clark. And Jim Clark had this quote back in, like, I don't know, 1999. And he was talking about the amount of data, like the amount of data the whole world has is being created every month. And back then you were like, whoa, every month. Okay, so now it's happening like every day. And so we're just getting more and more and more data. So everything is being tracked. If you go to any website and you click the view cookies, you're looking at all the data that every single person who has a slice of that website is looking at. And it's not the product team, the marketing team, the sales team, but it's IoT devices. So data from where you're parking in a parking lot, or how you're driving on the road, or what you're doing in a shopping mall or a grocery store. Everything's being tracked. So we're just collecting all this data. But the biggest thing is we just can't look at the data. We actually have to do something with the data. And that's all about creating that data-driven culture. So by 2023, A digital ops mindset will be the key reason for more than half of large enterprises meeting their digital transformation goals. So what does this actually digital ops mean? Well, if we talk and think about dev ops, marketing ops, all of these major organizational silos, I guess, all have to operationalize what they're doing. So here's 6 things that are really critical. The benefits: making more confident decisions, becoming more proactive, company success and longevity. So a more agile organization can pivot and maximize resources. And that's what's really important here, is that the old way doesn't work anymore. All this data is being collected. Your organization is collecting all this data. How can you use it? Awareness and transparency. So keeping everyone in the know is critical. How many of you work for a company where you don't know the sales goals? You don't know an individual salesperson's goals. You don't know the product team goals. Many of us work in companies like that, where there is no transparency on those goals. In Fragistics, everything's wide open. Every month we have a company meeting, we see sales, we see revenue versus target, we know what everyone's doing, we see details. So like at our company, we've gone through this shift. Now, when I started back in 2003, it was like, yeah, I didn't know. We didn't talk about this stuff. But then slowly, like 2007, 8, we have more information. Now everything, like we don't even like, before it's like, well, let's have these other people make this decision and then let everyone know. No, let's get everyone in the room, come up with the goals together, because the shared goal and transparency is how we win. And then we can ensure that our teams are driving towards the right goals. I'll answer the why. You can gain deeper insights into your customer journeys, identify funnel leaks and success points. There's a book, and I think it's called, maybe it's called Asking Why. But anyway, I wrote a document around, asking why at least 5 times. And so when you ask someone a question, they give you an answer. And then you're like, oh, okay, that's a good answer. Then you ask them why. And then, okay, but why? Why? Until you get to the root cause or the root issue or the root question, you'll never really know how to make the right decision. Continuing to ask the why. So I say ask why like 5 times. And there's all these things on the internet about asking why and then continuing to ask why to ensure that you're not just acting on the first thing that you hear. You really have to get that deeper insight. Then, of course, data-driven, you identify new revenues of growth. We do this all the time. We're like, wait a minute, that's interesting. We didn't realize that was a correlation of that. So maybe we should focus some marketing spend over here and then growth hack a little bit and see what kind of revenue we can pull in this month, this quarter, or with the campaign.
Be sure to check out the next video in this series, Building Blocks for a Data-Driven Culture, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Reveal BI.